The very first thing you were given is the name of the city on Iasis that you had to go to. It's by the name of Gamaz. Oh yeah, we should do goals real. So before we do that, let's talk about goals just very briefly. Who has some goals that they completed? And then for those of you that don't know, goals are how we gain experience in this game. Players set their own goals based on how hard they are and how long they take. I give them experience equivalent to that. So, does anyone have any goals they've completed?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, Fortune, why don't you go first?
Get a hold of Boomer, and Boomer has responded.
He did respond with basically no.
Yeah.
Uh.
No, and I'm not telling you why.
Right.
Because Boomer.
Mm-hmm.
And reasons.
Yeah, because Boomer needs a legitimate business face, is basically the reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've had that for 6 sessions, and it's basically the equivalent of just sending a message and not sending a message. So I think that you can get, you can take 200 experience for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, that
That'd
second
be-
one is going to take quite some time still.
Well, I've got a plan, and I'm waiting for the first one to complete before I start the second one.
Okay,
Because
good.
I think the first one's going to happen a lot sooner.
Okay. Gogo, you mentioned you completed some goals?
Yeah, the first one, which I thought was going to be a harder goal, to be honest. But it ended up just kind of being a single meeting. So
yeah, but I
Was
don't...
that goal to convince us all to join a war?
right. So that's why I was like, damn, that's gonna be a great goal. And then everyone was like, okay, and I was like, all right, cool.
Well, I don't think that you can take away the difficulty of that. You are pulling people away from their own personal missions with that, because you could have just as easily gone literally anywhere else because you guys have about 5,000 juggling balls in the air that you need to collect at some point. So, creating an arrow that led you in this direction definitely gives you some credence. So I think that for that one you can probably take 250 experience for it. I think it was significantly harder, even though the crew kind of went with it like right off the bat. I think that there was definite possibility for like long-term drawn-out failure there, because there's a lot of other things that needed.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that was it.
Dr. Fisher or Oscar?
I have 3 ongoing ones because we decided that since we're kind of following, we've committed to this, that having some recurring goals with general parameters is a reasonable way to do that. So I haven't completed any of them, but the 3 that I'm working on are to convince Oha that this whole undertaking is worthwhile. Basically, as you said when you introduced her, to restructure the home government on our planet. It's the first. The second is with something that we haven't touched on this session yet, but in terms of proving to the cause, which is that group of psychics who's still not super well understood to Oscar, that he's worthy as an agent. And thirdly, just to simply advance the war effort. So do something meaningful that contributes in the favor of Westwind, and essentially stick it to Barba.
Yeah,
is the goal.
Yeah,
and I haven't completed any of those, but those are going to be recurring.
Yeah, because it's a well-known fact that the Barba Society and Kuchera Syndicate, who are the ones that have kind of teamed up, are extremely xenophobic. They hate aliens. And so that might be like the primary driving factor behind why they've just outright attacked people. But as with everything, it's never as black and white as that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Neither are Oscar's reasons for contributing to this effort.
Right, absolutely. And I would mention that I think those first two are even themselves a little bit in conflict, because we know that Oha feels a particular set of ways about the cause itself. She's aware of it.
At some point there will have to be a decision made.
Yeah.
There.
Right.
Something's gonna stick, but
yeah.
for now.
But until then, you can certainly complete them congruently.
Yep.
Cool. And Dr. Fisher, I'll take a look at your sheets here to see if we actually did complete any of those during the downtime. You only have 2. Did you finish one?
One was impossible at this stage.
So. Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Which was not possible.
It's fine, don't worry. I'll think of a new one more prevalent to our current situation.
Yeah, in fact, the 2 that you have there are kind of this, like, not the same thing, but certainly going to add up to quite a bit of experience eventually.
Yes. When I finally get those 2 done, I'll suddenly jump up by probably a complete level.
Absolutely. I think that you will do something like it'll be like Fortune's gun when that happens. So I think that as we approach, you guys have about 6 hours in transit to get to, like, within vision of the planet that you need to go to. So I want to quickly go through the crew and see if there's anything you guys are in particularly doing, and also what might be getting prepared for this upcoming mission. Obviously, we know we're all bedecked full battle rattle for those that have battle and rattle.
Sure do.
But maybe there's some preparations because you have a bit of time, and also there's always the danger of encountering enemies along your flight here, because even though you've drilled into the edge of the system, you could be on any edge of the system, right? Just the way that drill space works is not completely accurate, and your trajectory in towards the planet might lead you right into a fleet, right? So there's also some stress and strain there, because you know that there are indeed, like, powerful forces about, both good and bad, right? Like, it's not necessarily going to be a Barba Society fleet that you run into, or more likely Kucheris Syndicate.
Just as scary.
Correct. Scarier even in fleet form.
Yeah.
So does anyone have anything in particular that they do during the short transit time to Iasis?
How many jumps is it to Iasis?
It is 2. If you would like to make some rolls. But also, if I remember correctly, the next roll you need to make is an operation.
I did an operation on Chan already.
Let's see here.
Went swimmingly also.
It did. I rolled like a 14.
Oh, okay. That's actually in 2 more. So actually, yeah. If you complete the next one, the one after that will require an operation, but this time on Go-Go.
Hi, Go-Go.
Dun dun dun.
So if you want to make 2 rolls, you can make the first one, which is essentially you have a research plan to try and discover what exactly is going on with Chan, and also in turn Go-Go, because Go-Go was also infected ? With whatever this disease or genetic gene engineering sci-fi bullshit is, right? And the distinct difference between the 2 of them is Go-Go has had far less side effects than Chan has. And so what you're trying to do now is discover the difference between the two so that you can then determine what's affecting each of them separately and together. And last time when we talked about Chan, when you did the operation, you were able to remove a bit of tissue from a particular growth in the base of Chan's skull, and you were able to determine that it was essentially like super stem cells, right? That they were like multiplying and manifesting at a severely high rate, and is probably much of the cause of his like some of the properties that he's encountered: the extra strength, the extra dexterity, the lack of pain that he feels, all of these things combining kind of into one there. And so really what you're trying to determine is, why doesn't Go-Go express the same symptoms? So in this instance, it's not going to be that easy. I think that if you could make me I think you made a tech med check last time, so I actually want you to make me a science roll here. Do so with intelligence, and I think that you're looking for a 10. I think a 10 is the target number that I want here.
Okay. That is definitely not a 10.
That is not a 10. Now, as an expert, you have a reroll that you can use once per hour, but you also have important things coming up. Now, the thing is, you have 2 chances anyway, right? Like, you can always just be like, and then do it again for your second chance.
Yeah, I think I'll just use my second jump.
All right. So it's going to be the same roll for you. There you go.
Hey.
So, I think that the revelation that you come to during the jump here, after analyzing all of the data that you've collected, of which is tons of terabytes of data, I think that you come to an impasse in your research. And I think that this is where we see Dr. Fisher begin to deviate your studies, and instead of you realize, I should say, that you should not be treating Chan and Go-Go as 2 instances of the same thing. The data that you're recovering just does not line up, and I think that when you come to the realization that you need to study them as 2 separate subjects infected with perhaps different strains of a disease or a thing, it kind of enlightens you and opens your eyes to why different things may be happening and what may be going on. And I think that you realize that Go-Go has the same symptoms, only in the small area at the base of her skull that has these supercells in them. But I think that the distinct difference is, when you look at those, they are almost inactive. They represent the same like genetic structure and the same type of cells, these supercells that you found in Chan, but in direct conflict, while Chan's were hyperactive, Go-Go's are very dormant. And I think perhaps even since you're approaching halfway to being finished with this, you might come to realize that this goes far deeper than just the 2 of them being, of different blood types or something simple like that. The disease is affecting them uniquely different for whatever reason. And you realize that you won't be able to really compare the 2 anymore. That you'll have to work on them as separate subjects. And so I think that in order to confirm these findings, what you need to do is you need to have that procedure on Go-Go that you did with Chan. Now, you've already done it once, right? So when you do it again, you should be fine, right?
Totally, yeah. It's not as if one slip of the wrist and then I've killed our only pilot, and so we're just drifting through the vastness of space.
Yeah, you know when you should do that? You should do that like right as you go to jump away with the VIP. That seems like the perfect time to do that.
I don't see any problems with this at all.
I mean, we know Fortune can fly the ship.
True.
Oh god.
It's been done.
Can and should are two different things.
So, with that being said, Dr. Fisher, what does it look like when you tell Gogo that you're going to have to operate on her head?
Yeah, I think once I've correlated my current findings, I kind of sheepishly go up to Gogo and say, yes, Gogo, can I talk to you for just a second?
Gogo just kind of like turns in her chair and looks at you. Yeah. What's up?
Yeah. You know how I needed to perform that operation on Chan, and how it went really well and it advanced my research leaps and bounds? I kind of need to do the same to you.
Gogo's eyes kind of go wide for a second, and you can tell that she's like about to say something, and then she like bites her tongue, and she takes a deep breath. She goes, "Is it the only way to continue your research to help Chan?"
I believe so. Your differences between Chan's affliction and yours is too different to just rely on numbers.
Okay. She just nods her head. Is that it?
Yes. Thank you, Gogo. I'll go before you change your mind, as I almost run out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you see Gogo turn around, and although like she's kind of shaken and a little worried, all she had to hear is that it would help Jan. So.
Sweet back.
Yep.
The
Number
sweetest.
two, apparently.
I'm still excited for you guys to take him on a mission. It's gonna be great. So, what about the rest of the crew? Is there anything in particular that you would have done or want to do
Yes.
in transit? All right, Fortune, let's talk to you for a moment.
I would like to make 2 laser rifles, please.
Okay, yeah, and I think I've set like a standard DC on that, right? It's like a
I thought it was just DC 6.
because you've already made it. Yeah, that makes
Correct.
sense. Right, and you needed the materials, which you've acquired some material, or
we have 3 more laser rifles, and well, I guess 4 more laser rifles.
Right, you don't
the
necessarily
armory.
need materials until you run out of the ones from the armor.
Correct.
Right, and then the DC becomes harder because you would actually have to like create a weapon to mod it, because your specialty is in modding, not necessarily in creating weapons.
Correct. Eventually, but not yet.
Right. Cool. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and make me a profession check, your profession armor, to modify 2 laser rifles, DC 6.
And I forget, was it intelligence or dexterity that I'm doing this off of?
Honestly, it's probably dexterity at this point, because I doubt that intelligence helps you anymore. You've already figured out how to do it. Okay. You just need to do it, and physical doing of things is probably dexterity in this moment. Perfect. Bam. There you go. 11.
So 1.
So that's the 1. Yep.
Mm-hmm. 2.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So now all but 1 are modified, I think, right?
Correct.
Cool.
So anybody who wants a laser rifle besides Fortune, let me know.
Oscar would still manage to blow it up, even though he fixed it.
Gogo's also got a rocket launcher, so she's good.
Yeah, but this is like a much smaller scale than a rocket launcher. But okay, yeah.
That sounds worse, actually. That sounds worse than what Gogo said. So
This doesn't have lethal splash damage, and we
Yeah.
definitely need to make sure that Gogo is the one that ultimately kills all of us.
Yeah.
sure. What about Gogo or Oscar?
I think that Gogo would be, most interested in her actual evacuees.
Yeah.
And she loves the gossip, so she's trying to figure out the popularity, the ranking, who these
Yeah.
people are that she's
So-
actually going to pick up.
Yeah.
Any information about the Ton, because she doesn't know anything about them. So any of that that she could pull would be great.
Yeah, so the cool thing about the Ton is, and you were given a like documentation on this particular mission. Now remember, you've picked up this mission not from an official, quote unquote, official source, right?
Correct.
You've essentially picked up missions that Westwind doesn't have time or resources to handle requests from the Ton, and so they go to freelancers to do it. And I think that as far as general information on the Ton, beyond what is written there about them, they're pretty secretive. But not in so much as they don't like to tell people about them. They just don't ever really encounter people to tell about themselves. They're not a particularly guarded race when you find them, like out in the sector. It's just that you'll never find them out in the sector. So the couple of key points here to Ton society that perhaps need to be expressed is, being a pacifist race, they have no capital punishment. In fact, they don't even have a jail system. They don't have a any type of any sort of jail or capital punishment system. Instead, they have a system for exiling members of their race. So if a member of the race is convicted of a crime, be it from the lowliest, theft, all the way up to, murder, instead of jailing or killing them, they will exile them for a specific amount of time. The Ton lives slightly longer than humans do, so exile does not mean much. And even then, like, the greatest amount of years of exile is probably 100 is probably the maximum, which could mean that that a Ton at a younger age could be convicted for 100 years and then be able to return to the homeland. And so how that works is, they'll stand in front of a judge and jury or their peers, as we would understand it, and they are convicted, and if they're convicted, they are sentenced to X amount of years or months or days exiled, and then they're escorted back to their homes, and they have a week to get their affairs in order, make sure that people are taking care of their children, make sure that people are, running their businesses, etc., and then they are flown via Ton ship to any destination within the sector, deposited there with a specific set of items that the Ton government will give them, a number to communicate, to inquire about their cases and stuff like that. They're probably provided with a compad if they don't have one, and they are just left there, and the delegation will fly back to the homeworld, and then they can never return until their time is up. And so it's interesting because it means that all the Ton that people have ever encountered, with a rare exception of the diplomats and ambassadors that leave the city, or leave the planet, are criminals. So I think the Ton have actually a fairly poor reputation in the grander scheme of things. Be it from, look how cruel they set a 18-year-old boy who, you know, stole some food for his family. They left him on this deserted planet. All the way up to, oh, well, they're just depositing all their criminals and leaving them for us to deal with. So the Ton don't have the greatest of reputations. As far as the two alien races in the sector, the Ton and the Syriac have a far greater, better reputation with the humans of the sector than the Ton do. Simply because they're very open to integrating into society and welcoming humans to their world and, you know, sharing ideas and information and et cetera, et cetera. The Ton are just secretive and isolationist. The other important thing to note about the Ton is that in their pacifist nature, they understand that when action is called for, it demands response. Not dissimilar to how we would understand like a lot of nations in the world, where if they're not provoked, they're content to kind of just, you know, live their lives and have, but as soon as they are provoked, they're ready to fight tooth and nail. That's kind of how the Ton are. Their fleets, they build all of their own ships, they supply all of their own food and all of their own materials, and they build all of their own ships, and their ships have a very kind of sleek, no hard lines or corners, very kind of smooth curving motions throughout their ships, and they are advanced even by Westwind Corporation, which would be the standard ship makers for the humans. They're advanced even beyond what Westwind is capable of. And so the Ton are to be feared when it comes to particular naval or fleet engagements, because their ships are so powerful. Now, they have less of them than other demands, obviously, but they're a force to be reckoned with when they are awakened. Which one could assume now they are pretty awakened.
They're pretty woke.
Yeah, they're pretty woke, as it were. Because, you know, a large population of them has been forcefully moved from their home planet, of which most of them is the only thing they've ever known and loved. Obviously, that's a problem for them. So, as far as to your specific question about the individuals you're going to retrieve, Gogo, I think that I would like you to make me a culture traveler roll, please, with intelligence. You'll have a basic set of information based on what you were told, but this is to have any more. Okay. A 7's a basic success. So, in addition, you know that you're going to it's the Fortan estate, Fortan, and you know that the Fortan estate is owned by the Fortans, and they are one of the oldest kind of like old money pre-Scream Silence families in terms of like us Americans. They would be as recognizable as, let's say, like the Bushes or the Kennedys, or I would say the Rockefellers. I would say the Kardashians, but they're famous for a completely different reason than these people are. But that kind of level, like they're a household name to the Ton. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. And you're going to their estate in Gamaz, which, the thing about it is, they have multiple estates. Gamaz is just one of them. And Gamaz is kind of a medium-sized city that's in sort of a country area. It's kind of like a summer home for the Fortans. And you're there to... I think the specifics of the mission are not even to recover a specific individual, but to recover any individuals that are in the estate. Like, just, we don't... And it's probably because of a lack of information about it. They're not sure who's there, how many of the Fortan family is there, but you're instructed to not only get them, but also all servants, all hands, all pets, all everything else. Every living being from the estate you are instructed to retrieve. Now, you wouldn't have taken this mission if it would have been impossible to bring all of that stuff with you. So, there is... The mission was probably given out, and the original assigner of this mission is probably a member of the Forton family. And they're probably missing 3 individuals in particular from the family that they believe to be at the estate, because that's where they were located when the surprise attack happened. So you're to rescue the youngest daughter, named Amelia. Just like it sounds, Amelia Forton. You are to rescue the middle son, because they have 3. They have 6 children, 3 girls and 3 boys. You're to rescue the middle son, who is Havardi Forton. And you also know that there is a family pet you are to rescue by the name of Neko.
God damn it.
Oh no.
And like the pet is important enough that you were instructed, this is like, if you can't get anything else, you get these 3 things. Like,
So it's
Okay.
like family, got it.
it was, and I think that you find it strange, but these 3 things are valued equally. Like, if you have to choose, as long as you get one of these, it's okay.
Hey man, if they put the contract out and they want their cat back, we'll get their cat.
Yep.
Yes, cat.
Yes.
Anyway.
It is Neko. That's where I was going with
I,
it.
oh yeah. Oh no, I'm fully aware of how I named it.
Yeah.
So, you were instructed to gather these 3 individuals, and also if anyone else was there and available, like any servants or butlers or drivers or maids or, you know, whatever, nurses, whatever may be there, to gather the entire contingent that you could and get them back to safety, which would be, in this case, the refugee camps over in 0308, where the Westwind Corporation sits.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the mission as it was laid out. At least what was given to you, what is known about them. Now they are in the middle of a war zone, and there was probably a question of, well, how do we know they're safe? And I think that the answer that you received to that question was, the estate is extremely defensible and self-sufficient, and even if the grab tanks of Barba attempted to like mow it down, they would find significant resistance. But they would also say that anything is possible, right? Like, who knows? They have weird super weapons that we don't know anything about yet. So whatever, who knows what might happen. So yeah. Does that answer your question there, Gogo? In not so many words, I promise.
Yes.
Good. So that's probably a great place to take our break. Now we've only been going for a little bit, but we should still take the break right here so that we can have the appropriate break time and then get back into it. Sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okey-dokey.
Cool. So just before we do that, though, I do want to set the scene going into the break. So, Oscar, if you want to do something, we totally have time for that after this, but I do want to get this out there. As the group of you arrives, the dull kind of dust-colored, slightly bluish speck begins to grow in your view screen, right? And I think at some point you pull up like an imagery of the planet and what it looks like, and you can see like where the location is of the city you're supposed to go to. It's a nice kind of more rural area, so hopefully it'll be, you know, less crazy there. You can see the planet is kind of it's a lush planet. It's a little bit warm on the planet, so you can tell that like it's probably a bit a bit kind of rainforesty. It actually is very similar to Raimondi in that regard, surprisingly enough. But I think that the distinct difference here is where everything on Raimondi just like grows out of control. Specifically on Iasis, things work and kind of defy the laws of nature sometimes, where it's not uncommon for like a copse of trees to relocate itself overnight, and nobody really knows what happens. And so there's this kind of weird, almost mystical energy about the planet itself that kind of delves into all the different fears and things that people have of it. Probably ties into their fairy tales as well. But as you guys approach, the planet is actually quite beautiful from a distance. And I think that you switch the view screen off, and we get finally an imagery of the planet, and it is distinctly different from that. You can actually see, just via the view panel on your ship, that the atmosphere is clogged with a thick black smoke. And you can see fires just raging across the planet in a lot of different areas. And I think that, like, any of you that look on it, you realize that, I think this is, I mean, I don't think you guys thought this in the first place, but if you did, I think this is not a vacation. The entire planet is torn in half with this war that's going on, and blatant disregard for the beauty of the planet previous to that, as you can see from space the burning brush fires that are casting up this thick black smoke into the atmosphere, and like probably even see pockmarks from orbital bombardments and all kinds of bad, crazy shit going on. So I think with that imagery, we'll go ahead and take our break. Let's be back at 15 after.
All right.
Deal.
All right. Then we'll get right back into it. So stay tuned. And for all of you, be right back for the second half. Hope to see you then. Goodbye.